The Nintendo Switch recently had a massive upgrade in the form of Super Nintendo games being added to its digital library, available to download for free for those that subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online. I am not one of those subscribers, and the reason is I don't think it's worth it. I'm here today to add 6 games that I would love to see to the already 20 SNES game library on the Switch, which may just tempt me to go and pay Nintendo for their online services. The trusty Nintendo Notepad is back, and I've tried to think a little bit outside the box with this one because I already feel that the 20 games that we have already are just they're so good, they're almost a cliche. I mean, the Super Nintendo would have been nothing without those 20 games. In fact, the only thing for me that really does stand out is Demon's Crest, which is an absolute fortune to buy. I recently, in January, I saw a copy of Demon's Crest in the wild for £500. Not worth it to me, but now it's available to download. So let's have a look at the 6, watch this video until the end, listen to my thoughts, and I'm dying to know what you guys have to think, so please leave your comment after you watch this entire video. Okay, Nintendo Notepad, let's go. I'm picking out the Lost Vikings. I think that would be a remarkable title to add to the Nintendo Switch Super Nintendo digital library. There are 3 Vikings, all with very different abilities, and you need all 3 to work together to cross each level. It can be very, very tricky indeed, and it was kind of like co-op. It was just like an amazing co-op game that you could play by yourself, which sounds kind of weird, but it really does get you thinking. Like one of your Vikings has a shield, one has the ability to fire some arrows, one can like float or fly, you know, not all of them can jump. Like you really do have to think about what you're doing in the Lost Vikings to be able to make it successfully from A to B. Libby's loving it as well. And it's one of those games that we don't talk about enough, and I have ranted and raved about the Lost Vikings for a number of years. I've never played the sequel, so I can't comment on that. But I do think the Lost Vikings added a massive amount of value to the Super Nintendo's lifespan, and I think it definitely deserves some love. Now, have you played the Lost Vikings? If you haven't, you can pick a physical copy up for £20 and up, depending on condition and whether or not it's complete in box. But come on, Nintendo, Lost Vikings on the Switch, that would be absolutely wicked, especially on my Switch Lite. When I'm taking it out the house, I'd love to play it, I'd love to complete it again. Moving swiftly on is another game from my absolute favourite movie franchise, Aliens. So I'm talking specifically about Alien 3. I loved the soundtrack, I loved the level design in Alien 3, and I think it actually paid homage to the movies itself. I think the xenomorphs looked and moved as well as they could do with 16-bit sprites, but I just found it a really captivating game and a very difficult game nonetheless. So what I really liked about an Alien 3 as well was not just the kind of side-scrolling left to right kind of malarkey, but you've got that verticality within some of the levels as well. And again, it can get very, very tricky. And I can literally just see myself playing Alien 3 on my Switch Lite or my original Nintendo Switch console, kind of just out and about somewhere, you know. I think it'd be a phenomenal game to add. Unfortunately, I don't believe we're going to get any more Super Nintendo games, so I'm really kind of shooting at the stars here. But Alien 3 is another game that definitely doesn't get enough love. It was also released on the Sega Genesis, so yes, it's cross-platform, but nonetheless, it looks and sounds a million times better on the glorious Super Nintendo. Okay then, here is another one. Fortunately, this next title was included in the Super Nintendo Mini Classic. It is Super Castlevania 4, another game that looks absolutely stunning and has some of the most iconic music back from the 16-bit era. Again, a very, very tricky game, but a very, very enjoyable game. It's nowhere near as difficult as Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and that's one of the things that I really, really like about it. You can play Super Castlevania 4. I think actually, for me personally, that game is probably one of the best looking games on the Super Nintendo. I love that kind of moody colour palette. It's not as bright popping like your Super Mario All-Stars, your Super Mario Karts, you know, your F-Zeros. It's got a really nice moody colour palette, a nice moody sprite pack, but it works beautifully with the backdrop of that kind of vampiric, just dark kind of story, that backstory. So I'd really like to kind of feel that Super Castlevania vibe on my Switch and my Switch Lite. Again, we're not going to get it, but a girl can dream. You know, it's kind of like one of those staple titles, but it's not really, because I think Super Castlevania 4 has a very niche market of gamers. I can't imagine, for example, my young nephew playing it, but I can imagine people my age in their 30s really kind of getting on the grind with that. It's definitely not a family game, so I don't see it as a kind of family thing. You're going to sit around on Christmas Day all playing Super Castlevania 4. But nonetheless, it's one of those, as a woman in her 30s, give me Super Castlevania 4 on the Switch all day long and I will be a happy lady. Okay, again here I'm shooting at the stars a little bit. If you watch one of my recent pickup videos, you will know that I picked up a stellar copy, a repro of Star Fox 2. And yes, we got an actual release of Star Fox 2 on the Super Nintendo Classic, and I really enjoyed playing it through, and it has some replay value because you can change the difficulty and get slightly different endings, and it's nowhere near as good as Star Fox, granted, but it's still a really good game. And I think the story for many around the cancellation of Star Fox 2 is captivating even by 2019 standards, or at least it certainly is to me. And I think we often overlook just how powerful that era in gaming was when the N64 was about to come out. You know, when the likes of Star Fox 2 really suffered because of that, because Nintendo didn't think it would live up to going into the next generation. It was scrapped, but a lot of the technology was utilised in Star Fox 64 that was utilised in Star Fox 2. So a little bit of back history there, I'm digressing, but that for me solidifies Star Fox 2's reputation within the Super Nintendo era. And whilst we didn't get an official physical release of Star Fox 2, we've had some good repros, and we kind of got that digital-esque version, the most complete version in the Super Nintendo Mini. Now I would love to see that. I would love to see Nintendo do more with Star Fox 2 by bringing it onto the eShop. It would be nice to really kind of push that legacy. And I know from talking to Dylan Cuthbert, one of the key developers, the Argonaut developers, and one of the key developers for the Super FX chip, the version that was released on the Classic is a different version to what he has at home on his floppy disk. He's told me that, so that intrigues me as well. I think there's a lot of mysticism still around Star Fox 2, and I think again we need to be pushing that legacy. I would have absolutely loved it to be available download on the Switch. Okay, little bit of a Disney classic here, again released on the Sega Mega Drive. Arguably looks that little bit better actually on the Sega Mega Drive. I'm going to go with Aladdin, a very important game that was recently re-released with, I believe, The Lion King on the current gen consoles. A game that certainly surprised me back in the day because it wasn't typically something I would have reached for off the shelf, but it does provide lots of nostalgia. If you've seen the Aladdin films and you've played the Aladdin games, there's lots of crossover, and for me, growing up, that was really, really important. And the combat's surprisingly good. You know, it's pretty fast. When I thought something like Aladdin, when I was a little girl, you know, if I saw that on the shelf in Blockbuster or in Woolworths, I would have completely discounted it before playing it. But when you actually play it, again, side-scrolling action, lots of verticality, enemies can be quite tricky at times. I love the fact that you have your little monkey with you. Soundtrack is absolutely stellar, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it would have been great, again, I can literally, when I picked these games, I said, can I imagine myself like sat on a train or something playing these games? And Aladdin really kind of is prominent in my mind. So it's an important game, it's a staple game on the 16-bit console generation, and I would have loved to have seen it. Nintendo, I wish sometimes Nintendo would listen to the fans, or at least put some kind of poll out to what we would really like to see. My last game then, my sixth and final game that I've picked out for this video is Uni Rally, known as Uni Races in the North American regions, where you're literally, there's a unicycle and you race against AI through insane levels of twists, turns, jumps, loops, drops, slides. It sounds outlandish, but I can't think of a game that comes anywhere close to replicating the joy of Uni Rally. It was a game I first played with my friend Pierre and Matt back in the day. Obviously I could never afford it because I couldn't afford anything back in the day when I was little. We were so broke, but it was unique. And you can do these tricks, you can kind of like use the L and R buttons on the Super Nintendo controller to do flips and turns and twists, and if you manage to land it, you go faster. So your tricks are an essential part of the race. However, if you don't land it or you land slightly off, you'll skid and you will lose speed, and then the AI will more than likely overtake you. You can also play with a friend split screen. It's absolutely so much fun, and there's a lot of skill involved as well. In fact, I think, did DMA get sued because there was this I don't know, they got sued over the design of the red unicycle. You can Google it. I'm not going to kind of digress anymore in this, but Uni Rally, Uni Races is a great game, and because DMA Designs got sued, here's another little fact for you. Only, I believe, I could get this figure wrong, but 200,000 copies were only ever produced, and once the legal stuff came out and DMA was sued, they had to stop production and they were kind of taken off the shelves. So Uni Rally / Uni Races, I'd love to have it on my Switch. So there we go, a girl can dream. The Super Nintendo, as you guys know, is my favourite console. I have a huge library. Some of the stuff I still need to sort out with my Super Nintendo games. I will do an updated video on my Super Nintendo collection, so please hit that subscribe button if you're interested in retro gaming or gaming in general. Do lots of stuff here with streams, everything. It's wicked. But for now, I hope you have a beautiful day, guys. Be better today, be better. Tell someone you love them, you know, do something nice for somebody today. Hope you have a good one. I'll be back on Wednesday with more content. My name is Gemma. Take care. See you soon.